Today we want to speak about human factor and technical failures. We are now in the most important part, the most large part of our lecture, and want to discuss the weaknesses and charges of different layers, of different components, of different parts of a complex communication system. And we will start to discuss about human factor and technical failures and how they are related to the question of security. Let's start with a few remarks about technical failures. The internet, the IT systems that are connected over the internet technology, they all perform a really complex data network. And the more complex such an IT system is, the bigger is also the number of errors. Errors in hardware, errors in software. If any piece has only one small error, then due to the combination of all the system and its connection to a complex IT system, there are many errors, a huge number of errors in the hardware and software components. And the problem is that these errors do not only affect the functionality, but they also affect the security of a system. So on the basis of some of these errors, one is able to attack a system, to break into a system. So these failures are really an important problem. This failure may occur on different levels of a system. It can start that failures on the hardware level, so in the hardware components. It could be failure in the design of the hardware system. It could be failures in the design of the software system. It could be failures in the implementation of the hardware, in the implementation of the software. It could be, and this is also very often, failures in the configuration of systems, a failure in the application. So all this can provide a situation that in combination they provide security holes that may be misused. Now one can ask, then please allow only failure-free components to be connected to the internet. But this is an illusion. Systems and networks are so complex that it's not possible to guarantee that there are no failure or no configuration mistakes. Of course, in scientific world, computer science, one is thinking about this problem and one is reflecting it. And one tries to develop methods for proving the correctness. We can perform a test, but you understand, because the number of different inputs is so large that we cannot make a complete test. It costs much too much time. So the idea is that the method of verification, of formal verification, whether computer science could develop and provide methods that one can prove the correctness of a system without testing it. It's similar like a mathematical proof. In number theory, we do not have the method of testing whether a theorem is true. We have proof methods. And we can even prove that an infinite number of situations behave in a certain way. So one is working hard in theoretical computer science to find such methods for formal verification. One designs strategies and discusses strategies to guarantee that in the development process of software and hardware, correct systems come up, correctness by design. But in practice, we see many systems with their failures which are connected over the internet, and this failure, the world of failures is exploding. For each of the software and hardware components, the problem with these failures is that serious security risks are existing, which are based on these failures. And to make, we already introduced this term exploits. By means of exploits, one can misuse these mistakes with an idea to, for example, prepare a break-in or do some other bad things. So when This is true for a simple IT system. But when we interconnect these IT systems over the internet by each other, then the potential of misusing such failures is increasing a lot. The possibility to cause an undefined situation, so that system come in a situation one cannot predict what is the next step, is often a very good situation for security attacks, because then one can try to force a system to crash down. We will see why this is a problem, or that we can exploit it for doing some other mischief. So there is a big risk of misusing all these errors. Nevertheless, when we analyze the situation, the most break-ins into networks arise from human failures, from bad configuration, from uncareful dealing with such systems, for not using security measures. So the most important are these human failures and problems in the organization. In the organization of an enterprise, it's not really clear who is responsible for what. So this is important to see. Also, there are so many mistakes that can be, and errors that can be misused. A big source of faults comes from humans and how humans deal with these things. Let's have a closer look on some of these failure areas. Let's start with defective design. So, and have a special look to the protocols, to the communication protocols, to the defective propagation protocol design. Because that, besides that the system have failures and that they are insufficient validated, using insufficient validated hardware components and applications, many security problems of internet and internet results from the fact that there are no adequate security mechanisms provided by the internet protocols. Later on we will go into detail, we will look at the different internet protocols, and we see that there are no security mechanisms available. So even if people are willing to behave in a secure way, the system, this defect protocol design does not provide this. So if you, for example, look to the IP protocol, TCP protocol, to the UDP protocol, FTP, HTTP protocol, they all are designed without strong or without any security mechanisms. For example, if you look to FTP or to Telnet, these applications transmit passwords in plain text. There is no one thinking that it's impossible to send a password in plain text from one station to another, because everyone can sniff the network and then he or she has a network. This is a mistake in the protocol design. There was no one thinking of introducing security measures. We will see why this came, because in the beginning, the people tried to provide functionality and develop the functionality of internet working. And this was done for computer scientists, for a trusted community, and people said security we can add later. But the experiment of this internet working with TCP IP changed the world, and now internet is a worldwide used communication infrastructure. So results are that TCP IP cannot predict, for example, the nodes over which a packet is transmitted. So it could be that packets are transmitted over hacker stations, over router where hackers have complete access and can control all the packets. So this is a big problem. Also sniffer programs that observe all the traffic in a network, they are able, for example, to reveal such passwords that are transmitted in an unencrypted way, in plain text. This is not a failure. It is a defective protocol design. It's a mistake by the protocol designer that they did not provide security mechanisms. So when we want to use internet in a secure way, we have to add own tools and own applications to close this gap. Let's have a look on defective software design. Not only the communication protocols have security weaknesses, also server implementations have substantial security problems. So, for example, some old security leaks in some applications like the web server or an FTP server are known, as well as many TCP/IP implementation will have such mistakes, such weaknesses. So one thing is there is in the design no security mechanisms, and then this design is implemented, and then there are some additional problems and failure occurring from the implementation. So internet technologies such as JavaScript or Java applets are well known for their security risk. So for secure applications, you have to switch off, for example, JavaScript, because otherwise there are known possibilities to misuse some of the features provided by JavaScript. There are different operating systems that provide serious security leaks, and so providing targets for attacks. Also this we will later on consider in more detail. In this first overview, I mentioned this human failure, that is important. And often this human failure is not that people like to do some worse. This is only a small criminal part of the society. Most people that are using IT systems do this careless. Some do not completely understand why such security mechanisms are needed or why this has to be done. Some know this, but nevertheless they are careless. So one of the main reasons for security incidents in distributed systems and networks are defective or incorrect system configurations. So that the possibility to configure a system in the correct way is not done in the correct way. I will mention a few examples. So insufficient or missing access restrictions to or between the data networks, which may have different security requirements, is such a problem in misconfiguring system. There is an increasing professional knowledge and techniques needed to the traditional data processing stuff. So computer science is developing very fast. So all the people dealing with such systems need to be learn more about these new technologies. And sometimes in large computing centers, people said, I'm not so much interested in the last detail. I follow my old way. This was secure when I learned, and I know from my experience it was secure. So they are not aware that many things are changing and new answers are needed. The careless use of old software versions is a problem. The old software versions often are known to have some security bugs. And if it's known that there is a leak, that a certain software can be misused in a certain way, then everyone needs to close the security leak, needs to update the software, because there is no excuse if the system is attacked by misusing the known leak of such old software. Their systems and the network functions that use typically preset standard configurations. So if you install it, there is a standard configuration, and it is very important to change this initial standard installation and to request them. The reason is, with a standard installation situation, there are standard accounts known to everyone. There are default passwords set so that in the beginning you can start to access the system. There are open accessible configuration files. This is a start situation. So after a system has been installed, one wants to start to use it. So this default passwords, the standard accounts, this open accessible configuration files that help to start the system. But immediately, if one is in the new system, one has to change this. One has to change standard configuration. One has to change standard passwords. And if you asked why it is a goal for an attacker to force a system to break down, one reason is to disturb the correct work. But the more important reason is after breakdown, typically the system restarts automatically. And the restart automatically is done in this standard configurations. So if the standard configurations are not changed, then an attacker, after having forced the breakdown, the system restarts in the standard configuration. He can use the known default passwords. He can use known standard accounts to easily break into a system. So to force a system to break down, an important idea is to force a system that when it's restarted, that it comes in this standard configuration, and the standard configurations are known and then can be misused. Let's speak about hacking, social hacking. Social hacking is an unexpected but often very successful method to obtain access to a protected system, not by trying out or checking a password. The idea of the social hacking is to speak with the people, to get the people tell the attacker some secret, for example, a password. So you may ask how it's possible. If anyone comes and asks me for a password, then typically I will not answer it. And if it's a person I do not know, I will never answer. But there are very tricky methods to find out such kind of information. For example, in a company, in an enterprise, a person comes and says, I'm system administrator, I want to update your system. Please give me the entrance that I can do this. And the people are happy that their system is updated or they get a new system, and they tell the password or give the password or type in the password so that the person stand along can see this. So social hacking or social engineering attacks, this is the name for such kind of activities. And one has to be really careful with this. Also, the social hacking is one of the most common and successful techniques. Cheap, easy, humans want to communicate, and it's easy to get them in a situation that even they are willing to tell secrets. Although it is a very successful method to break in the typical training, there is no one caring about this. So in these training sessions, in the education, one speaks about all these technical possibilities to break in a system and how to prevent this. But how to be sensibilized for such social attacking, there is only less done in the training programs. So the missing user awareness is an important part here. Here are some examples of this social hacking. To obtain access code or to obtain a password, typically an administration service is simulated. I have to do this with your computer. I want to improve your work conditions. I want to set up a new application for you. Please tell me so that I can do this. Give me access to your computer. Another method is to lure system administrators away from a root console or ask them to log in on another terminal on which a hidden monitor program, such a keylogger, is running, so that they get the administrator password. Or spy out the infrastructure of an enterprise by pseudo-service employees or customers. we are a cleaning service, we have to install new computers or have to put computers aside for doing this and this and this. The so-called reverse social hacking. That is called, an attacker is using this reverse social engineering to obtain information, present himself or herself as an authority. For example, as an administrator who offers help or services, so that the target thinks, I trust him or her, instead of the original administrator. So we have no time to look too much in such things, but there exist stories about the social hacking that prove how successful this method is. Beside of the human factor, a lousy organization is a reason for security problems in IT systems. So a reason for low security standards in enterprise are often organizational deficits and missing organizational structures. It starts with a lack of the IT staff, a lack of knowledge of the IT staff. IT world is developing very fast, and the IT staff has to be educated continuously to understand this new technology. And often it's difficult to train these people because they have their full day administrator work, and then to ask them to learn more about some new developments is not so easy. There are insufficient or sometimes unspecific training for system and network administrators. Similar like also for the normal employees that are in the IT department or have to deal with IT systems. Then another defective organizational problem in enterprises is that there are known, existing, or insufficient security instructions and security responsibility. So what we call a security policy for the staff. How to deal with the password, how often password need to be changed, who is responsible if some attack is recognized. What person has to collect such information? What person has to tell this to the board, to the management board of the system? What power has this person? So if there is an attack running, is this security administrator allowed to switch off company's IT system or not? Who has to be asked before switching off? So all this needs to be defined. These are the security policies, and each company needs to define such security policies for the daily work. Then in the case of an attack, in the case of a catastrophe, there is no time to start to think who should do what. It should be predefined, and everyone should know in advance his own responsibilities. So the detailed security policies are a precondition for reasonable implementation of ICT security in enterprise and business processes. Unprotected hardware is another risk factors in company. So substantial security risks result from unreliable or unprotected or faulty hardware. Here are some typical problem scenarios. So a power breakdown for components. For components that are not secured by such a new PS system. What happens? Automatically, the system crashes down. So if you can cause a power breakdown, system crashes down if it's not working with such an UPS system. And then system, as soon as power comes up, system restarts automatically. And I mentioned this already. Typically, it restarts in the standard configurations if system administrators did not work correctly and carefully. So it restarts in the standard configuration, and a later break-in is easy for people because standard account and standard password are known. A missing physical protection of network components, of routers, of computer systems can cause problems. So the freely accessible root terminals or network devices like hubs and routers provide an easy way for an attacker to physically attack an IT system. Here are some most important break-in methods. First is denial of service attacks. This is also distributed denial of service attacks, this DDoS attacks. Here the idea is to paralyze an internet service or a web server, typically of a large companies, with such a denial of service attack by sending a huge number of network packets which generate or send out by former manipulated computers, with the effect that the system, the service which is requested by these packages cannot be brought, and system breaks down due to a lack of resources. Attacks by viruses, worms, and Trojan horse. Here we have already had a lecture about it. Another important break-in method are sniffer attacks. Sniffer attacks, these are small programs that are infiltrated in an internet host and which control completely the data stream in this network. You remember, in a local network, it's a broadcast network, so all packages are sent to all hosts in the network. So the sniffer program controls all this traffic and, for example, looks for passwords. So it looks, for example, for patterns like pwd and then something to collect password, and then later on to misuse this password for own and bad purposes. IP spoofing is another typically break-in methods. So the attacker sends packets with a faked sender address from the address domain of the target network. So if such a message comes, often firewall system only look where the message was sent from, and then they see, oh, it comes from our own network. So controls are much smaller than control if the firewall recognizes that the message comes from an outside, from an untrusted computer. One can apply exploits of sendmail server, which was very popular. Which are very popular, and so damage could be caused. Here are some top security risks that are defined by the Hasso-Plattner-Institut. I mentioned this already. This was for computer security. So unpatched client software. This is a really big problem. So, for example, for Microsoft Office, Adobe Reader, for Flash, for Java. So it is counted that 90% of the successful attacks comes over such unpatched software. Because the attackers know that there is a weakness, it is possible to update, to close this leak, but people are lazy and does not do this. There are vulnerable internet-facing websites, so brute force password guessing attacks are possible, or SQL injection. We will later on discuss this in more detail. Cross-site scripting is a very important security risk and method to attack a website or a system that are connected over the website. PHP file include attacks. So we will later on speak about all these attack methods and the details behind. So this was a survey over the failures in software, how they can misuse for security attacks, and problems of human factor and organizational mistakes. Thank you for your attention.